Greetings from Eugene, Oregon, an Airbnb with a magnificent picture of horses above my head. Look, CJ Stroud was the object of national media attention because of the exchange he had with Caleb Williams as CJ was mic'd up, and he tried to give some advice, whatever. I'm not concerned about that. The more interesting thing from this mic'd up was the exchange between CJ Stroud and cornerback Jaylon Johnson.
Stop telling your secrets on Richard Sherman podcast, dude.
What you mean?
The palms, look. You ain't slick, brother. You ain't getting me. You ain't getting me.
All right, my first immediate thought was, oh, cool. CJ is actually getting in espionage by watching Richard Sherman's podcast, where defensive backs, frankly, in my opinion, share way too much these days about the inner workings of how they operate. Look, I ran a 5.1 40 and managed to play 10 years in the NFL. It wasn't by telling the enemy what my little tricks of the trade were. But that's neither here nor there. I know a lot of you watching that are asking, what the hell is Palms coverage? Well, this is the play in question that Jaylon Johnson was talking about.
Dobbs protected and picked by Jaylon Johnson. Johnson on the return will take it down inside the 40. They're in a cover two, so he has safety help. He's going to take Brandon Powell, and he starts there. But once he comes to the inside, it frees him up to then get underneath that route. And if you see coverage, if you're Dobbs, as soon as you see the cover two safety, that's the corner that you have to concern yourself with when you're trying to fit that ball in behind him.
So let's listen in on the Richard Sherman podcast where he's talking to Jaylon Johnson sometime in August, and this is what CJ Stroud saw just a month or so ago.
I've seen you make quite a few plays disguising that cover two, jumping down, coming out the flat, going to the 7.
It's funny, the pick that you talk about, we were really in Palms. So
you did that out of Palms?
I promise you. Because look, hear me. I seen the formation, so in my head, I'm like, I know I'm to the field. He sees me off. He probably going to try to bang this 5-yard in. But I already knew it was a 5-yard in with a 7 behind it. In my head, I'm going to make a play. I don't like just catching that little pass and tackling it. So I'm like, if he throws this short route, I'm going to drive it. So sure enough, he caught it. Boom, he looked. I took off. Boom. I seen him pump. So I'm like, damn, I got to get out of there and help and get back. So I stuck my foot in the ground, got out of there. He threw it. I'm like, oh, I got him. And I took it, but everybody like seeing it. It was like, oh yeah, cover two, great high low. I'm like, nah, I was being greedy, and
you a sick dude.
Yeah.
I got to be more expressive like Richard. Yes, you did that in Palms. So in Palms, it does look like cover two, in which case this defensive back would be responsible for any routes that were coming out towards the sideline. In Palms, they switch it up a little bit, and if this number 2 receiver goes vertical, then the cornerback is actually responsible for the number 1 wide receiver. So this wasn't a case of young quarterback Josh Dobbs misreading the coverage or making an errant throw. Josh Dobbs actually read it perfectly, but he did also learn the lesson that in the NFL there are freaks of nature who can recover so quickly that it has really good and knowledgeable football players like Richard Sherman and Troy Aikman thinking that this is just a veteran baiting a young quarterback into making a bad decision. So, look, I love that CJ is such a football nerd that this is what he does in his off time, or maybe it's part of his process. He goes ahead and searches on YouTube for the defensive backs he's facing this week and finds information about them any which way he can. Maybe he's got a staff of people do it. I don't know. And here's the thing. I don't want to know. I don't want CJ telling the opposition that he's getting this info on them, because then there's a tendency that they might clam up and not give the information so much in podcasts. But I know that also part of this is just me being a grumpy old man. I don't understand the seduction of the podcast the way that these young players are subjected to all the time. But I know that this is a great indication that basically CJ, compared to a lot of other quarterbacks, is putting in time and effort above and beyond just time on his iPad or looking at the game plan. You think about Tom Brady from a previous generation. The other day just went through his files that he has, these dossiers that he has on all the players and schemes that he played against. And over the course of a long career, that stuff comes up, and you can dial up these little situations from game to game. And in this instance, hey, CJ knows that Jaylon Johnson, if he feels like he's got a tendency on you, he's going to try to jump her out, and there's a way to exploit that later on. The other area where maybe I doth protest too much is that it's very possible that CJ was kind of playing that mental game of letting the guy know that he knows that you know that I know that you know, and it might make Jaylon Johnson second guess some tendencies that he thought he had on the Texans and not act on them, even if CJ indeed and in fact was actually unaware of them. So love that CJ plays these games. Love that he does this research and puts the time in. And as of right now, I'm ambivalent on playing the whole podcast game and the actual psychological warfare the way CJ's playing. But these are rich folks' problems. If Caleb Williams ever chooses to listen to CJ Stroud's advice, maybe he'll start watching some podcasts as well.